It's a pleasure to chat with you today. So, a lot of my audience will want to know, first of all, what is EMF?
EMFs are electromagnetic fields. So also commonly speaking, we would say radiation, but that's just a more precise way of putting it. And electromagnetic fields are created from almost all of our electric devices, which we are using on a day-to-day basis, and which have some kind of communication function. So when we're talking about radios, when we're talking about smart gadgets like, Apple Watches or tablets, phones, Wi-Fi routers, and even today, we have many devices which doesn't need to have any kind of communication ability, but they still get. Like for me, for instance, an example is now diapers. It's still shocking to me, but we are now actually putting some communication possibilities to diapers so that we get a notification on the app that when something is happening with our child. So there is all kinds of new technology arising, and all of these new technologies like phones, Wi-Fi's, and cell phone towers, they are producing electromagnetic fields.
Now, when it comes to understanding some of the implications upon human health, obviously there's quite a number of studies in cell studies, in rodents. Can you explain to my audience what are some of the potential dangers associated with EMF exposure?
So if we are looking from it from a general point of view, we are seeing hundreds of studies where there is effects on the body, and it's almost going to all parts of diseases. It's a very general field where we are finding effects, since it seems to be basically disturbing our internal cell communication and causes also cell death in many ways. And this is because there's calcium rushing into cells if we're exposed to this electromagnetic field. So we are having in all of our body, we can have potential cell death. But the most associated issues, I would say, are hormonal disbalance, headaches, sleeping disorder, and such things which are most associated with EMF, generally speaking.
So when it comes to ways to mitigate EMF exposure, obviously, number one would be to completely eradicate and eliminate these technologies from our lifestyle. However, as both you and I know, it's not very easy for us to do that every single day. So what are some other ways in which we can minimize EMF damage?
Well, the first thing is to limit the exposure as much as possible, and this is great because your audience, they can use this kind of hacks for free on their own basis, which starts with turning off your phone at night, and if you have to use it for an alarm or something like that, and you don't want to get just a regular alarm clock, which I would actually recommend doing, then at least put it in airplane mode and shut down the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth settings in your phone, and start also being more conscious about our devices which we are using. Not everything has to be a smart gadget, and make the right choices when you're letting devices enter your house. I don't understand nowadays why my fridge or washing machine or laundry machine, those things break, we need to replace them, and we don't need to get those with some smart gadgets, from my opinion. So this kind of consciousness is needed for us to go forward, that we are saying, okay, some things are good the way they were. And I think this is a good start to do it, to limit the exposure which we have. So turning off Wi-Fi at night is for me a must, since there seems to be quite a big impact on the sleeping disorder. And otherwise, you have different possibilities of shielding. And something which is my speciality is when it comes to depolarizing, which is a very unknown way of protecting yourself, which is by dispersing actually the radio wave, by letting them interfere with liquids, which burst them open on a wider area.
So what about as far as some of the research? Now, I know that you've conducted, or you've actually seen some pretty deleterious effects when it comes to EMF exposure. Did you want to talk about the human study that you recently have discussed?
Yes, so we are also doing from Waveguard, we are doing studies ourselves. And this is one of the key factors which sets us apart, that we are saying, okay, we try to do cutting edge research. So we are working with universities. We work with the Institute of Reproductive Medicine, for instance, in the United States, and also with other leading edge universities. One thing which really stood out to me was we see that the studies show that especially the non-thermal ones, so we're speaking about one thing, we have thermal effects in the body, and the other part is the side effects, which is not related to heat. So, and those things, they show the higher the frequency is, the more damages seem to occur and problems seem to occur. So, and that's why many people are concerned about 5G. And I know also, like, especially in Australia, where also there's a big movement there nowadays with the anti-5G movement and so on. And so I was saying, okay, we need to have a 5G study, since the studies are indicating the higher the frequency is, the more non-thermal effects seem to be there. So we started this path and said, okay, we want to be doing a 5G study, since it was a shock. There was no 5G study.
Wow.
There was no. The industry doesn't anymore have to show that it's safe, that it's not harmful. And so there was no study on any animals and humans or anything there yet when we started. And it was even being already broadcasted. So this is where we came in, and we were the first institution in the world to do a real 5G study. And what we were looking at were human cells, which we used from skin cells. And there was a gap created in a Petri dish, basically just a glass dish. You have the cells and you divide them with a silicone strip. And then the cells, they're trying to heal themselves again and close the wound. We all have that seen many times when we were, falling down, have a scratch or just a knife cut. And this kind of healing process we saw. And when we're looking at this healing process, when we are exposed to a 5G radiation, this was increased, this healing time, by around 400%.
Wow.
So normally the wound, when there is no EMFs inside, then you would have a 24-hour in this setup, how long it takes to close the wound. And with a 5G exposure to the cells, you have a healing time of around 96 hours.
Incredible. And I guess also another area of focus here would be, you've spoken about 5G being, a major source of EMF. What about some other lesser known devices and technology that actually do emit EMF that's also problematic? I know that at one stage, some countries around the world, they banned microwaves.
Yes.
Do you want to talk about some other devices and technology that's emitting EMF that we may not be familiar with?
I would say the electric counter, I would say. So we have the measurement devices inside of our home.
The power meter?
The power meters.
I see.
They are usually also actually a big source of inside our home, which can create EMFs. But especially the higher the frequencies are, when we're that especially calling them, I would still say the Wi-Fi and mobile phone signals are still the strongest effects on our body. And there it's where we need to start at, because they have the highest frequency. And for many people, this seems to be the most biggest problem, being exposed 24/7, 365 days, always to such a high frequency field.
Now, as far as some other ways, now obviously you mentioned minimizing time, reducing the distance from exposure. Talk to me about the devices that you've developed, ways to counteract EMF exposure. Do you want to explain what you guys at Waveguard have pioneered?
So we are following the path of the University of Athens. What we have found there is, or what the university has found is, that you can depolarize EMFs. So when we're talking about this question, which comes up then always, what is depolarizing? It's basically dispersing on a wider area. So in the nature, we are always exposed on the whole surface on our body. It's a pretty spread out and balanced exposure on the whole body, what we are exposed from EMF wise. When we're using a cell phone, and let's pretend this is the cell phone, and you're going here and you have a cell phone signal coming from in here, then there is a direct line of a radio wave coming through your brain. And this is a very, very focused intense reaction in the body, which it's very hard to conquer because it's so punctual. It's like if you're starting to focus the sunshine, like with a zoom just on one spot. What do we get? We get a laser, and then we can cut steel and everything, right? So, and this is basically the difference. So we have used this new communication devices, and we are focusing their EMFs on such a small area that they are going through everything, and that they are having much more health effects, since the body doesn't really have a possible way of protecting from this really, really punctual pressure point. And so what depolarizing means is bursting it open again through the interactions with liquids. And this principle we have built into our devices, and we have created a special key liquid which is just enhanced to depolarize EMFs inside the room. And we have done 25 studies on that, which are showing that we can decrease field strength and the negative effects, health effects on the body from this radiation by depolarizing.
So in terms of Waveguard, obviously you guys have pioneered some absolutely revolutionary devices and technology, which I think I hope to see in a number of households, particularly in Australia.
Thank you.
When it comes to the future of Waveguard, what are you guys hoping to achieve over the next couple of years?
Well, we are now working on more products and making them more available for people in a lower price range. And the second thing is what we are currently working on is customer experience. So we have just introduced, first of all, the first certificate which each device is being sold with, which actually shows how much your device is going to reduce your radiation inside your home.
Wow.
So this is basically a whole new quality step which has never been reached in the whole market, that you're getting a certificate how powerful is your device. No competitor has even close to something like that. Most competitors cannot even show that they actually decrease the field strength. We can show it up to 90% in 5G, and so it's a new bench which we are reaching there. And we are also introducing now a tracker, a body tracker and sleep tracker, which is without EMF exposure to the body, at least almost as limited and as low as it can be physical. And it's very highly accurate, and it gives you access to an app, and you're seeing actually the health benefits which possibly the device can give you by sleep enhancement, increasing your recovery rate, oxygen in your blood. And so you have different measurements taken from the device, and then you're building up a 2-3 weeks time window where you're testing how good is your status of your health before you introduce the device, and then the app actually shows you what is happening and how you're getting better. So this is some of the new projects which we are working on and are just realizing right now.
It's exciting stuff. I mean, yeah, very impressive with what you guys have developed at Waveguard, and I'm very excited to see what the future holds. And it's very obvious that you guys prioritize high quality standards and evidence-based practices. So it was an absolute pleasure chatting with you, Hagen.
Thank you.
And we'll be in touch.
Thank you.